There's always a great deal of talk about why and how the cybersecurity industry should professionalise. But what does that really mean? If you look at traditional industries, then they have professional bodies that represent them. We talk about professional bodies within our industry, but we haven't actually got a proper defined definition of what that means. Yet if you look into other disciplines, you absolutely have those. What we're looking at the moment is to have a full process in terms of identifying what professional bodies can represent us and moving that forward into a charter status. Charter status for individuals working within our industry is an extremely important thing. We're being asked by financial services regulators, for example, under Section 166s, which are the investigations that are mandated on behalf of the financial services regulator. And we are being asked about what level of input can the industry provide in terms of that type of activity. In order to do that, we need to have a charter status. In terms of professional bodies then, what we have is a wide range of chartered professional bodies. These are people that can issue a chartered individual. So in other words, there is a body and an awarding body, and what we need to do is to ensure those two things are fully understood within our industry so they fit together. We have a wide range of chartered professional bodies that the cybersecurity industry already refers to. We have people from the IET that look at electronics. We look at the IMechE in terms of industrial control systems, the British Computer Society in terms of coding and application. And we have new emerging ones like the ISSP, which are likely to get their charter status, hopefully in the not too distant future. What we need to understand is how all of those things fit together, because we need to have a consistent view of how they can be applied, and a charter status needs to be applied at a consistent level across all the areas of the industry. Therefore, what we need to do is to understand what elements of the cybersecurity we're going to look at and what professional bodies those individuals might be able to belong to, and how we can ensure they have an appropriate career structure. The cybersecurity industry is very difficult because it's a cross-functional discipline and also covers everything from deep dive technical through to awareness and training. And therefore we need to make sure that whatever we do is going to be inclusive of all of those types of job titles, and to make sure we have adequate representation in terms of true professional bodies, those that carry a charter status for our industry. In addition, we need to understand the strategy and how we'll work together as an industry with other professional bodies. We are not working alone. As we've described, it's part of a multidiscipline, and therefore there are professional bodies that are of direct relevance to us, as I've mentioned, people like the IET, IMechE, the BCS, and there are others that we believe we should actually provide a contribution to, but we shouldn't actually directly relate to. There is also confusion between groups of similar professional bodies working together for a common goal, and what type of standards and relationships are actually in place, and also the formal function of a professional body and a professional body council. The way that this operates is that a council pulls together a number of professional bodies to come out with some minimum standards that are required for people to attain a charter status. That pulling together is an extremely important aspect, and the existing science councils and engineering councils do a really good job in those disciplines, and what we need to do is to establish whether or not those existing councils are going to be fit for purpose for ours, in other words within the cybersecurity industry, or whether or not we have to go away and develop our own. The benefits of using an existing one is it gives us immediate international coverage. It's a relatively low cost area in terms of being able to develop this. We can speed to market, and also we can utilise it in terms of its ongoing sustainability, because there is already a sustainability model in there. However, it may be the case we have to do something different. At that point, we believe it's going to be a much longer track that we have to go forward, because there's a great deal to be done. We can stand on the back of giants, but it will still take us some time to do. But that decision about what the council looks like, that oversees our professional bodies, the BCS, IET, and other organisations like the ISSP, is going to be a really important thing. We then need to understand how the professional certifications feed into that process. What are going to be the minimum standards? What are the criteria for people to move towards a charter status within our industry? And therefore we need a consistent view of what the certificates are, what professional level certificates are, what they mean, and where they are in terms of the hierarchy. The cybersecurity industry can and need to have both. So in other words, we need to have access to professional certifications to provide career pathways for people, and then we need to have professional bodies that will actually draw us into an equivalence with other professions, and therefore we need a council. So in other words, certifications, professional bodies and a council to pull all of those three things together. In terms of the relationship with the professional bodies, those chartered institutes, then the category ones are the ones I've described, the direct relationship with the cybersecurity industry related to IT, electronics, control systems, etc. Category two are really those that have an influence on us in terms of the security industry and where it fits. And again, that could be law, insurance and other parts where we provide a significant input to it and an emerging influence to it, but we shouldn't necessarily have a direct relationship either as a council or a professional body. Then you have other sectorial bodies where the category three is they can influence it, and also it helps to mature the buying community. In other words, if we've got more mature buyers in finance, in telecommunications and national infrastructure, for example, and they understand what that means and they understand how cyber fits, then all of a sudden that whole industry sector becomes much more intelligent in the way that it buys. We're already seeing some moves in terms of audit firms and accountancy firms having minimum requirements in terms of at least a basic understanding of cybersecurity, and the best way to deliver those is through the existing professional bodies and councils. Category four are others that we would find interesting, but they're not active to us, and there are other areas where I think there is further investigation. But I think that categorisation really helps us. We need to establish our relationships with those that have a direct bearing on us. We need to have a relationship with those that we will have a direct bearing on them and influence their communities. And then we need to understand how we're going to educate the buying community to move forward in a consistent way. Within the cybersecurity industry, what we need is a set of recognised professional level certificates. One of the criticisms that's levied at the industry currently is that it's a maze of different qualifications, certificates and different pathways through to achieve very similar things. In other words, how do you get in, what type of qualification should you aim for, and what is recognised within the industry as actually being professional, and that's really not very clear. And if we're going to be a profession and we're going to encourage the very best people in, what we need to do is to be able to demonstrate a clear pathway through. If you look at where we are currently, we need to identify those that are recognised by industry as being professional level certifications. I have absolutely no problem with a training course resulting in some form of an examination and maybe the issue of a piece of paper that describes that a person has gone through that process. But in comparison to other industries, that isn't recognised in terms of being a professional certification. And what we need to do is to have independence. We need to understand exactly what that means. We also need to understand that we don't work within just a domestic community, and we have to have international recognition. So the certificates we're going to be identifying need to be recognised on an international basis, and they need to be consistently rolled out, and where appropriate, equivalence is matched. Again, if you're an accountant, there are equivalent qualifications in different regions, and you can utilise those to both travel, but also to provide consistency in terms of both international business and the way you can structure your careers on both a domestic and international stage. We also want them to fit very carefully in with the existing security ecosystem. So we don't want to go away and recreate something. We don't want to have to go away and actually regenerate the ecosystem itself, or to have it completely role-based. These things are orientated towards jobs, and a lot of the evaluations are done currently on an individual role base. So in other words, there's a set of things that people would do, and this looks like a standard job function. In actual fact, very few of those exists, but I think we can establish particular job categories, and we can start to identify the relevant certificates that would both introduce people in and actually move them through the process. There are absolutely some equivalencies in place already, both in terms of security management and in terms of some areas of technical security. And wherever possible, we should look for those equivalencies. So in other words, there are different routes through. People have got alternatives, there is competition in the marketplace. But what we need to do is to formally understand what those recognitions look like and those equivalencies are, so they're applied in a consistent way, and employers, purchasers of services, and the individuals themselves understand what they're actually buying and where they're moving ahead. All of those provide the individual with a significant pool of different pathways that will allow them through ultimately to get to a chartered status. Not everybody will want to get to that position, but we need an entry point. We need the way to move forward from a new entrant into an operationally qualified individual, and then move that into a senior management or functionally qualified individual. and then we need to move to charter status, and then above that we can have fellowships associated with particular disciplines or professional bodies. That structure is well defined within a number of the existing professions, and what we need to do is to mirror that in a way that we fully understand. The difficulty we have is the diversity of different roles within the cybersecurity industry, but we must try. We must identify those that we can solve and really identify those that we can't solve because they're going to be special effects. If you then move forward in terms of looking at some of the professional bodies that currently exist, those that provide certifications that are recognised on an international stage and are recognised both in terms of domestic, international, within governments and within the private sector. Organisations like ISACA, for example, 140,000 members in 200 countries. That's a really important thing. We have a different structure in terms of some of the examinations they run, and therefore they have to be recognised in this particular context. ISC squared, again, more than 100,000 people carrying ISC squared qualifications. These are recognised certificates. There's a range of different things in there. Some of those things directly relate to career pathways within cybersecurity, and we need to identify where they are and how they fit within the overall ecosystem. SANS has been a massive training provider and also an issuer of certificates. Again, a significant number, more than 100,000 people carrying those exams, and they're conducting those exams and carrying a SANS qualification or a certification. We need to be able to put that in the context of where we are, both in terms of the domestic and international stage. You've got entry points to the industry such as EC Council. Predominantly they've done CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, but even they're moving further along the stack with their license penetration testing. And what we need to do is to understand that if you haven't got an educational background specifically in cybersecurity, then CEH would be a really good starting place. It demonstrates some interest in the industry, but then you need to progress. And therefore there needs to be a pathway through, either through the EC Council or through other equivalencies with other organisations. Very important point, we mustn't miss that bottom bit in terms of having consistency of introducing people into the industry itself, not just through their educational qualifications. CREST has more than 2,000 qualified people and we operate in 4 regions, but we're very specialised. So in other words, we're a very niche, very bespoke area. But where we're currently trying to build out is at the bottom level through the apprenticeship programs and our practitioner level, so we have a much more balanced pyramid. In many ways what we've done is we've started at the top and gradually worked our way down. But again, we have equivalencies with organisations like Offensive Security. We recognise some of the other qualifications under the check scheme, and we recognise that we have to have equivalencies because some of our qualifications aren't available in certain regions yet. You've also got CompTIA. And again, we've got more than 45,000 people with those types of qualifications. The CompTIA Security Plus is a really good qualification, again suitable for those individuals who haven't got an academic qualification in this or haven't come through different routes. So again, a really good demonstrability of basic computing understanding, and the Security Plus, I think, is a really good introduction. And what we need to do is to understand how we're going to roll that out at the lower level and make sure we understand the pyramid. If you then move forward with an example of a career process, we could, for example, have our first level entry as being either academia or things like EC Council or CompTIA Security Plus. We can then move forward with qualifications that we jointly recognise in terms of new entrants to the industry in this particular domain, moving up into operationally qualified people. So in other words, those people that are suitable to carry out work themselves, but will probably have to have a sign-off by another individual more senior. At that point, you move into the senior management and functionally operational people. These people are responsible for managing teams and signing things off. And there's a whole range of qualifications, both from CREST and other organisations, that could potentially be fitted into that environment. Moving into the chartered status, as we've described. And again, I think anybody with a chartered status in terms of looking at penetration testing, for example, would have to have a broader understanding of security principles and have to have really the ability to explain concepts in a way that's understandable to boards and senior management. So again, I think a combination of qualifications at that level is what's required, moving up to fellowships that are recognised within the industry. What we're trying to do within CREST is to pull these things together. For 2 years, we've been talking to all of the other professional bodies, the other professional certification providers, to try to pull together a standard career pathway based on the certification. We're going to fund some of that research. We've already volunteered to do that. And we're going to start with things like penetration testing, intrusion analysis, incident response, threat intelligence. And we're looking at internationally recognised equivalencies in those areas, really trying to build out teams in a defined way. We have to understand why we're doing this, and this is specifically to answer some questions. So if you look at the Hong Kong Monetary Authority that's doing some critical national infrastructure work within the financial services, then they're struggling at the moment because they haven't got some of the more suitably qualified people to do technical assurance. So they're recognising some security management functions as being equivalent. In actual fact, they're not equivalent, and what we need to do is to understand those different disciplines. So we're trying to solve a problem on behalf of the buying community, as well as providing those support structures for our supply organisations and the individuals. The work will be absolutely relevant to the UK marketplace. We cannot work only on a domestic basis, and therefore all of this work we're doing here is looking at international collaboration, pulling these things together. You have a significant presence within the US, particularly in terms of the senior management of some of the larger certification organisations, and therefore we've got to work collaboratively and we've got to go to their shores, if you like, to pull these things together in a consistent way. The fantastic thing we have is we have the vast majority of those major certification providers now willing to sit around both a virtual and an actual table, working together to come up with those career pathways. And we've also been tasked with the CREST US exec to run those formal workshops and to agree those pathways and equivalencies in the US, and we're hopefully going to have those in place by the end of the first quarter of 2018. As I mentioned, we have a fully documented project initiation, which has been agreed by some of the major certification bodies, and an idea about how we're going to move forward. A series of virtual workshops are being arranged as we speak, and there's a number of physical workshops that are also planned for the end of the first quarter of 2018. It may take us a bit longer than that to implement it, but really some of the principles and things will be provided. The representation will be created because we need to have this in an understandable way that all of those certification bodies and other parts of the industry can utilise it in a structured way that everybody understands. And therefore the way that we present it is going to be a very important concept, and then we need to populate those models in a way that is understandable to the community. And then finally, it must be open. We shouldn't have the idea that we're going to pull a drawbridge up behind us and this is the certificates that are only the ones we're going to recognise. But what we need to do is to have a criteria for both maintenance and also the additional certificates to be added into the process. This is a really exciting concept. This is the first time really we've had the opportunity to pull together the major certification providers into the same room to try to come out with some career pathways. These are the people that can really influence the industry, and these are the people that have the ear in terms of the buying community and those that are entering and progressing through their career within the cybersecurity industry.